Yesterday, I attended longevity conference and I met many amazing people. Some of them agreed to attend my podcast. And one of the person is Dr. Tim Mark, PhD, MBA, global microbiome expert, co-founder of Trilliome, a true global citizen. His perspective is shaped by nearly 20 years of research and leadership across 8 countries: Malaysia, Australia, Germany, Denmark, US, UK, Netherlands, and Switzerland. Wow. With the PhD from the Max Planck Institute and postdoctoral training from University of Cambridge, he has stood at the leadership edge of the infection biology and the gut science. He has held senior leadership roles at industry giants like J&J and DSM-Firmenich.
DSM Firmenich.
Wow. So today he bridges the gap between the complex science and the business as a startup founder. He's here to talk about the future of microbiome longevity and how his team is unlocking the health superpowers of exotic fruits. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, amazing. Actually, I always got intrigued by microbiome. There are so many books around your 10% human, the gut. So I was reading all those books and I was insisting my gastro specialist in my hospital that come and attend the podcast. Let's talk about the microbiome. So I'm really happy that I have you here, who is you being researcher. I'm sure, I mean, you must be having more edge than them, of course.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's start from your journey. So you decided nearly 2 decades ago to research microscopic life form, which is invisible to life and the naked eye. And what initially sparked your fascination about it? Because it's so invisible. Yeah.
True. Yeah. Thanks. I started with I got dengue when I was a kid and back home in Malaysia, and I got really sick. I was hospitalized for a while, and then since then I was very much interested. How can I study all these microbes or viruses or bacteria, for example? And somehow I ended up as a microbiologist, and that's the reason why I look into more on how the microbes actually determine our health and diseases as well, and
Exactly.
hopefully trying to find a cure about it. But at the end, right now, I'm focusing more on how to improve our gut microbiome through some products or some drugs or some intervention, for example. So in this area of gut microbiome and health and diseases.
Amazing. I also feel there's a big gap between people being sick and what people can, and suddenly we start talking about the longevity, but there's still space where there's everyday practices that only comes by information and the knowledge, and a researcher like you also who can talk. So there is a big gap. So either people are sick, they take antibiotics, and then they take probiotics, but there's a big gap, like what to do in every day, and of course, what to do for longevity also. So your career is almost 2 decades, and in a global respected institution like Max Planck Institute, University of Cambridge. So what about these discoveries which surprise you the most?
I would say the microbiome is still, at the moment, still a black box. So we don't know exactly what's actually happening in the microbiome, because you have so many things in the microbiome, like the viruses, fungus, not bacteria alone itself. And no one knows exactly what's happening in this global, these kind of complex ecosystems. And that's what fascinates very much, because it thinks that every day there's always a new papers, a new research coming out from the microbiome science. And I'm just talking about the gut microbiome. Of course, there's also some other microbiome, like the skin microbiome, like the oral microbiome, and also the vagina microbiome, for example.
Gynecologist.
Exactly. And that's all play a very important role
Yeah.
in determining our health as well.
And
to be
especially for
healthy.
birth time. What I know, it determines a lot in future of the baby.
Of course, exactly.
exactly.
I mean, for example, this cesarean versus
Normal
natural
birth.
birth. Yeah, there's
Exactly.
actually kind of determine a lot of the microbiome of the baby itself. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have a strong career at major companies like J&J and DSM Firmenich, yeah. So what motivated you to step away and to go into this longevity stuff and Trilliome? So yeah,
So I have been working in the corporate world or in the industry. So basically, I started from the academia for a long time as a scientist, as an academic, and then I moved to the industry. So there's a big transition as well from academic to the industry. And I've been working in the industry like the J&J and DSM, for example. First is the pharmaceutical company developing drugs, and the other one's more focusing on the nutrition, developing gut ingredient, like human ingredient supplements direction. And I realized that I want to do my own thing. And I wanted, actually, why not with my experience in the academic, scientifically, and then also industry experience,
Amazing.
why not I want to do my own thing? And that's the reason why I co-founded together with my business partner a company called Trilliome. And we are
Amazing.
focusing more on the longevity, and we wanted to develop ingredients that actually work scientifically.
amazing.
That's what the passion about, to bring something from scientifically translated to the human consumption and human benefits.
Yeah, of course, it's amazing. I read a book and it's said it's about the gut microbiome. And it said that these gut microbiome are so important that they don't just determine your health and sickness. They even determine what career you will choose, whom you will choose for marry. So they can affect
True.
your decision making.
True.
So it's so important.
So that's what we call the gut-brain axis. Whatever inside your gut, somehow you have a feeling about it. It's kind of you kind of affect what you're thinking as well, your mental health, and also your stress level and everything. Yeah, it's actually
Amazing.
related to
So
it.
some of the genes I'm born with and some of the gene pool is a borrowed one. And that borrowed one I can control by controlling my microbiome. Amazing. So the name Trilliome looks very intriguing. So what does it represent? Does it represent that we are connected to the trillions of microorganisms that live on our body and inside?
Yeah, very good observation. So Trillium's words come from, it's a play of words. It's a combination of words, trillions, which is the amount of microbes in our body, like trillions of microbes in our body, and the microbiome, so it's a biome part. So it's a combination of words, trillion and microbiome, and that's why we come together with a name called Trilliome.
Amazing. So like we really have, there's a book out there, you're 10% human. They say you're 90% of the microbiome. So probably it's true.
It is true, but I would also have to say that the 10% human thing is actually not right at the moment. I think it's more than just that, because I think I can't remember exactly the numbers, but maybe like 20% actually is the right numbers, because I think this is just a marketing gimmick about how important microbiome. Don't get me wrong, microbiome
Got it.
is still correct.
Like we always exaggerate to
Correct.
emphasize, yeah.
But still, that means there are
20% also.
more. Definitely, I can't remember exactly, but definitely more than 10%.
More than
but
10.
we are definitely have more microbes in our body, numbers of microbes in our body, than the number of cells, human cells in our body.
Amazing. And we have choice there about this borrowed genetic pool by our good practices and by the help of scientists like yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So for listener who are new to the topic, how would we define the microbiomes and why it is said to be a missing or overlooked organ?
So microbiome, the definition of the microbiome is mostly on the genetic level of the microorganism. That's what microbiome. Of course, there's another term called microbiota. There's much more of the complex ecosystem of the microbes. And when normally people talk about microbiome thing, we always tend to look into the bacteria only. But that's actually not entirely true, because you also have the viruses and also the fungus, for example, and including the bacteria. So it's a mix of microorganism in the microbiome. So it's not only focusing on the bacteria itself.
Exactly, amazing. So we are more microbial than human.
Yeah, exactly.
That's established,
Yeah.
right? So what exactly is the percentage? Not known, but they're very tiny, unicellular, and they're all genetic material. So at least genetic material is much more
Yeah, exactly.
And they are different. For us, even if we are 20%, this is the same genetic material in every cell. But that genetic material is different with every
Correct.
microbiota
Because each of the single bacteria, I mean, there's so much bacteria
colonies.
strains in there as well. If different the thousands of strains, different kind of bacteria in your gut, different kind of viruses, different kind of fungus, for example, different strain, and each of the strain have different genetic information.
Amazing. So most conversation focus on the gut bacteria. Since I'm a gynecologist, I go through the conversation of the vaginal microbes as well, and they affect. And we talk about the cesarean and seeding of the gut vaginal bacteria to the babies who are born by cesarean
Cesarean.
section. So tell us about more. And I told you recently I attended a other conference where somebody was talking, a dentist was talking about the microbiome and how each teeth is connected to the some organ in our body. So let's talk about what are other ecosystem like beside gut bacteria.
So I mean, if let's go back to the baby direction, I think the first that's a well established one. So some publication shows that the first 1,000 days of the infants or the babies, that's where the microbiome is not very stable. And that's where all the babies, they get the microbiome from the mothers or from the surrounding, for example. And we talk about oral microbiome, right? And that's to have a breastfeeding, for example. And breastfeeding babies have different microbiome than infant formula feeding. Because the thing is, because you have the breast from the mother and you get all these bacteria, the lactic acid bacteria, like bifidobacterium, for example,
Exactly.
from the mother itself, right? And this is the milk, the human milk oligosaccharide, that's all come into play about the human to human interaction. And that's contribute to the microbiome establishment for the baby itself. And of course, there's the kind of the oral for the baby microbiome. And of course, you also have the skin microbiome. There's also a different story, right? You have a skin bacteria as well, skin viruses, and also skin fungus on your skin. You have your vagina microbiome, scalp microbiome as well, that also contribute a lot with the dandruff issue, for example. And you have also the eye microbiome as well, a nasal microbiome. All the kind of, there's so much microbiome in our body as well. Yeah.
Amazing. So these are different communities, but how they interact with each other, or does it affect? Because this person who was talking about the dental microbiome suggested that if you keep the dental hygiene and the health, everything good, that determines your gut bacteria. So how much it is true?
It's very true because it's all interconnected in that sense. Because we always have this gut-skin axis, gut-oral axis, gut-brain axis, for example. But you talk about microbiome per se, if you can imagine, the oral microbiome is very much related to gut microbiome because it's our first pathway to enter the gut microbiome through the
So that's
food.
a primary source.
And then you eat it, and
Exactly.
then you have sometimes you have different bacteria in your mouth, and that's kind of contribute to the gut bacteria in your intestine as well.
Exactly.
I think one of the examples is like there's also a nice paper about a bacteria called Fusobacterium nucleatum, and that's the one that colonized some of the bacteria, some of the oral microbiome as well. And some of the cases of colorectal cancer, they also found this bacteria in the gut, in the colorectal biopsies, and that's linked to the oral microbiome as well because this bacteria is linked in the oral.
But some of the
microbiome.
bacteria will not, like the stomach acid and all those things. So this is the reason someone did some experimentation of the fecal implantation in the colon when after taking clindamycin, they were totally washed from the all gut bacteria. So don't you think like still there's a middle pathway? So yeah, but still like because oral bacteria, they will be passing through the stomach, and stomach acid, if they tolerate or they don't tolerate, that depends on that they will survive and they will pass to the small intestine or large intestine.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of bacteria passing through the stomach, acid and everything. Of course, I think most of them by right should not survive and everything. But of course, some of them still survive and some of them just pass through the stomach and go to the intestine. I think some of them also, for example, H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, is gastric cancer bacteria that causes stomach cancer, for example. And there's also have a lot of cases that they didn't pass through the intestine. You don't find it in the intestine, but you only found it in the stomach cancer. So it's also kind of it depends. I think each of the organ in our body is also adapted to the bacteria or microbes that are actually staying in that area. So it's kind of what we call the host microbes interaction. So in the end, it's still a very much of a complex system
Exactly.
because there's so many variation going on, so many factors. You have a host factors, you have the microbes factors, you have the viruses factor, bacteria factors, fungus factors. It's all come together to play to make this ecosystem in our body. And it's, in the end, it's all about the microbiome balance in the body to make sure that we are healthy.
Exactly. And I can understand it's very complicated or complex system because baby born without any bacteria and how they get colonized all over their body, even by passing the stomach acid and everything. So now the question, gut-brain axis, which we talk, that my audience will be really interested in it because that can even determine whom to marry, what career, all the important decision and all the wrong decisions you did in past, probably bacteria were responsible. So does it genuinely influence our emotions, thinking, and mental well-being?
I would say yes, it definitely helps. I think because of is what I call this gut-brain axis, right? And especially when you have a very good gut microbiome, for example, I think you have a good, you do have a constipation, you have very good bowel movement, for example, and you feel good as well. And that kind of affect your daily life. You know, if you really have bad stomach, if you have IBS, for example, and you need to go toilet every time, and you don't really feel good. So that kind of affecting the mental health as well. And another thing is because there's so much going on studies at the moment right now on this gut-brain axis, and because there's all this transfer of what we call the metabolites that are produced by the gut itself, and they transfer from the gut to the brain. And for example, one of the important one is what we call the short-chain fatty acids.
Okay.
And it's a one example is called butyrate. And it's also very important for the transfer from the gut to the brain to make it a bit more like we have much more healthier brain health, for example, because of all these good metabolites. I mean, short-chain fatty acids is one of the example, and the other example is the GABA, which is also one of the metabolites that produce from the gut that transfer to the brain itself. And of course, I also try to not, I think we always try to be careful with overselling the microbiome. I think, of course, you know, microbiome is very important. I think we need to have a good microbiome to have a healthy life. But at the same time as well, we cannot really say that sometimes because microbiome part, it can be what I call the causation or correlation.
Yeah.
That's always a big issues in the microbiome space. And it's still a black box, right? We still don't know much about microbiome.
So probably the sentence which I quote from a book, it's more of a fancy sentence, probably to sell the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's an exaggeration.
We have to be very careful with not to oversell it sometimes with the microbiome.
Yeah, and I'm sitting with a researcher. Yeah. Okay, many people assume that fruit is valuable for fiber content. Trilliome stat focuses on bioactive compounds in the fruits. So why they are more targeted tools than the fibers alone?
Yeah, that's a good point. We are focusing more on the bioactive compound instead of fibers because fibers normally like all this inulin, for example, GOS, for example, is normally the carbon source for the bacteria to thrive. So it's kind of a prebiotics function. We focus more on the bioactive. Here, what do we mean here is we focus more on what we call polyphenols. It's more of an antioxidant, strong compounds, and that's create a very good environment, a gut environment for beneficial bacteria to thrive. And this beneficial bacteria will be supporting this, what I mentioned earlier on, to produce these good metabolites for the brain health, for example, also for other stuff in the end. That's the reason why we're focusing more on the bioactive compound instead of the fibers. And for fibers as well, because in terms of formulation, you need to take high amount of fibers every day in terms of grams. And with the bioactive compounds, we are testing whether we can use it a very smaller amount of amounts. Instead of gram, we can do it in milligram, for example.
Amazing. So when other formulations available in the market, the prebiotic, probiotic, so you guys are different from them. Probably they put fibers.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's also the difference between the pre and probiotics as well. I think a lot of consumer market at the moment, supplement market, is focusing on the probiotics. And probiotics is really much into the life beneficial bacteria. That's kind of definition of probiotics. And we are focusing more on the bioactive compounds, but prebiotic definition is focusing more on fibers, which is the carbon source for the bacteria to as a food for the bacteria to use it to thrive and to grow, for example. But for us, we are using the term more of the bioactive compounds, which means we are creating the good gut environment for the bacteria to thrive.
Wow. So, yeah, amazing. So, it's a different concept than the general prebiotics and probiotics available traditionally in the market.
Yes, exactly.
So, why to look exotic fruits for these compounds? Do they offer unique biological properties compared to more familiar fruits available around?
Yeah, so definitely. So I come from Malaysia. It's kind of a tropical country, and we have a huge biodiversity in that region, right? I mean, we come from the tropical side of things, and there's so many exotic fruits out there. You probably know. I mean, you come from Pakistan, and it's also very much of a.
No, I went Malaysia, no competition.
Oh no, it's fine. No, but I'm just saying that the tropical side of it offers so much of a
You guys
unique,
way too green.
unique fruits and everything, and plants and fruits, and there's just very much understudied at the moment, right? I think there's not much going on in the way of how much of this ingredient, or at least these fruits, affecting the microbiome. And some of these fruits are really beneficial in terms of, like, they have some medicinal properties as well. And no one knows exactly how much of the impact of it on the microbiome.
Wow.
And because of the exotic fruits, it also resonates a lot to the consumer direction, because we want to bring in the exotic Asian fruits to the Western population. It also sounds more exotic and also resonate with the consumer itself. And we're getting natural ingredient from these fruits itself, because a lot of consumers likes to have natural ingredient. They don't want to have anything synthesized in the lab, for example. And this is natural ingredient, and that's actually much more accepted by the consumer.
So probably every country also has a different colonization of the bacteria or microbiome overall. And that also determined by those fruits and the compounds in those fruits, which determine those microbiomes.
Definitely not the fruit per se, but in general, more like diet, lifestyles,
Everything,
genetics, and
but
everything.
this is also has a contributing factor. So that certain active material you guys are bringing to other part of the world in the form of tablets.
Correct.
Or amazing.
Yeah.
So you guys work with in Trilliome work with upcycled materials such as fruit peels, seeds, and what normally is being discarded. You use it for sophisticated science-based health ingredient, right?
Yeah, so we're focusing more on sustainability efforts, and also because it's also resonate a lot with the consumer, because it's also more sustainable natural ingredients, and also because of the cost wise, because all this waste stream normally they just thrown away, and we are making extract out of this waste stream, and because the waste stream the cost is low itself, that's why we can actually develop much more a mass market for it, and that's why it's much more attractive for us to go for this direction.
Amazing. So your flagship product, TR101, it's designed to nourish Keystone microbes. First thing, what does this mean? Keystone microbe. And why supporting these organisms is so critical for overall microbiome balance.
So
Because for my audience, I want to tell that when you say colonization is a diversity, infection is a dominance, but here we are supporting one keystone microbe.
So there's not only one keystone species. There are several of them.
So still it's a diversity.
It's a diversity, but keystone species are the important bacteria or beneficial bacteria in our gut microbiome, and that support the whole, what I mentioned earlier on, the good microbiome balance itself. Without this kind of a keystone species bacteria, this balance will be disrupted, and this will cause a lot of problems in the health direction. And that's the definition of the keystone part. And our product itself is targeting these keystone species. And some of these species are not very well known. I mean, of course, there are some very well known bacteria, like, for example, every day you eat this yogurt, for example, we have this bifidobacterium, you have lactobacillus, this lactic acid bacteria. And those are beneficial bacteria. They are beneficial, but they are the common beneficial bacteria. And there are so many others common beneficial bacteria or other beneficial bacteria too that's not known at the moment. And there's a very much well studied, and we are focusing to targeting this bacteria itself, this not well known beneficial bacteria.
Amazing. We will be waiting for your book.
Hopefully,
So that's amazing, because I'm reading a lot of books around and they're talking about all the gut, your 10% human. And I was really, even though I'm not gastro person, but it affects our everyday life. So we already talk about the probiotics, which are bacteria, prebiotics, which is fiber for other people, and then you have active material. So what is this
postbiotics.
postbiotics? Yeah.
So postbiotics, there are actually two different definitions depending on who you ask. So as you can see from the words, there's pre, pro, and post. So it's a process, right? Pre,
Yeah.
pro, and post. And postbiotics is focusing the two parts. The first definition is what we call the heat inactivated probiotics. That means if you have bifidobacterium or lactobacillus lactic acid bacteria, if you heat inactivate it, it became dead bacteria.
Yeah.
And it's beneficial, and that's why I call it postbiotics. That's the first definition. And the second definition is more on what I call the metabolites coming from the probiotics. The metabolites we talked about earlier on about these short-chain fatty acids, for example, butyrate.
That's postbiotics.
That's postbiotics.
Amazing.
That's a different definition.
That's the one bringing gut-brain
Correct,
access.
correct.
Those are postbiotics.
Correct.
So your preps also contain postbiotics.
No, our compound is mostly on the prebiotic direction, more like bioactive compound.
Exactly.
Of course, you can always argue that sometimes the postbiotics can be prebiotics too. Sometimes it's interchange.
Bacteria can use them.
They can support growth of the bacteria as well. Some postbiotics can do that function.
Amazing.
As
It's
well.
really complicated.
Yeah,
word.
it is. Yeah.
Amazing. And actually, it's very important for general public also to understand, because there's a big gap between what's coming and what consumer is thinking.
Yeah.
I will tell you one very funny example. So my son's friend mom brought us cookies for Christmas, and she said she made it gluten free, and I said no, we all are good.
Mm-hmm.
We can take. She said no. Still she thinks it's organic, and I was like, even there's a gluten free shampoo available in the market. So what? And she said no, organic. And I just realized that consumer thinks whatever being sold, like even uncertainty can be sold. So all the more reason we people like you and us, we have more responsibility to take information to the people. So when the consumer goes to the shop or store, they should know what they're buying.
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
uncertainty is also being sold.
Exactly, I understand that. Definitely, I think I'm not a gluten expert, but of course, if you talk about all this microbiome part direction, some of the brands out there, they can actually brand themselves as a microbiome friendly. So there's a label called microbiome friendly, and
So it's not exactly that.
What does it mean, right? In that sense,
Oh yeah,
What
there's
does it
no
mean?
medical term even.
Sometimes, okay, you can do some testing whether it actually
Yeah.
changed the microbiome. For example, on the skin products, you can see a lot of labeling on microbiome friendly labeling, which I don't know what they did. Maybe they did some sequencing tests, microbiome tests before and after. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe they just think that, there's nothing happening to the microbiome. There's no pathogen coming up after that, and they can call it microbiome friendly label. Depending, right? I mean, there's a lot of things. Also, some brand for the food as well. Some of the labeling food, they put it microbiome gut friendly food, for example.
Exactly.
So, okay, what does it mean gut friendly? Or is it going to be supporting gut health, or just friendly to the gut health? Is just nothing happen to the gut health? It depends on the definition.
Like it doesn't harm. Is this the gut friendly,
Or-
or there is an actual
Exactly.
benefit?
We don't know, right?
Amazing, amazing.
There's so many labeling around out there,
Exactly.
and we have to just be very careful what we actually buy and what to do. Yeah.
Amazing. So everybody to be careful what you're buying. So nowadays, longevity is a major focus. Yeah. So I think Trilliome also focusing on longevity. So what is the connection between the healthy microbiome and the aging process? And is it possible that microbiome health can affect how we age, how longer we live, and what's the quality of life?
So, of course, the healthy aging part, microbiome is one part of it. There's many different other factors as well. And because microbiome is super important, because ultimately, end of the day, we are what we eat, right?
course.
And what we eat is basically feeding the microbiome.
Exactly.
And that's kind of affecting in general the whole life about our aging process, from teenager all the way up to right now. And of course, let's say if you take a lot of processed food, or you take a lot of fast food, for example, or you smoke or you drink, for example, and that's really harming the microbiome. And of course, with that as well, in the end, they also harm our aging process, or we actually grow old faster, or we have diseases. And ultimately, for the aging part, all diseases is also linked to longevity and aging direction. So that's kind of, in the way, at the end of the day, microbiome is still a very fundamental factor that affecting the aging process.
Amazing. So now we are living, everybody's sedentary, people sitting less, and most of the products we don't know what we are buying. So I saw carrot in childhood, it used to be real good color, nice pink, but now it comes very pale. So now people are struggling with the mental fog, energy slump later in the day. So, like, probably due to food, as you said, we are what we eat. So, is there any evidence that specific food derived molecules can support mental clarity and sustained energy?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier on, there are some products out there, for example, this GABA, for example.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, metabolites, that's actually helping with the mental health direction. Magnesium, people take it also for the mental health. It's the same thing, right? So, I think definitely there's an impact on the microbiome. I just don't know exactly what's the impact. And there are several kind of metabolite products out there that are affecting the mental health direction. And it's just that I'm just saying that because once we take care of our good gut microbiome in general, it also benefits to the brain health area of things.
Amazing. And the energy and everything, because a lot of people say that our moms were very strong. And we know traditionally the family used to be big. There were many, many big families, many kids. And mom used to be available to them all. Nowadays, small families, still people energy level very low. So now Trilliome is currently expanding and seeking a strategic investor. So, and since we are in the beginning of this all happening, so you believe that this is a moment which represents prime opportunity for investment, microbiome driven longevity solutions, and especially when there is a pseudoscience, there's a everything, and then a researcher coming forward with a research with a product which is science backed. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I always think that I know I'm biased. I'm a scientist by training, so I think we should listen to science, right? I think.
Of course.
And I know I'm a scientist, right? I'm by training, but of course, we also try.
Me doctor too.
Oh, exactly. So
And I love explanations. So anytime somebody explains thing to me, I feel like, oh yeah. Otherwise, it feels like everything is just changing into business model.
Okay, exactly. And the thing is right now that we in Trilliome, our focusing is really, we are both co-founders come from the science background.
Amazing.
And we want to develop ingredient that actually works. That means we have to show it scientifically that it's proven that actually works in our gut. And that's the reason why this is our philosophy to bring this to the market, to give it to the consumer, and we are actually developing ingredient that works for human health. And that's our kind of mindset into that direction of things.
Amazing. And I'm sure it will grow. You will not be static with the one product. It will keep on going further. Yeah.
So we are also thinking of other waste stream from some other area of, what we call the blue zone of the world. We are thinking about some place in Okinawa, for example, or Costa Rica, for example.
Amazing.
And we're looking for some exotic ingredient from there as well to look into the direction of developing the bioactive compound for the gut microbiome.
Amazing. So it's a prebiotic, but not the traditional one.
Correct.
So gut health space is crowded with the startups. And what differentiates Trilliome precision bioactive strategy coming from a researcher from the traditional probiotic companies?
So I would say that we are beyond probiotics that we discussed earlier on. That means most of the supplements outside are probiotics. And probiotics always have some issues in terms of the live bacteria in the pill itself. The manufacturing is always challenging because you need to have a live bacteria to make sure that the bacteria will travel to the gut and graft to the gut and colonize the gut itself. And also, we are also beyond fibers, as I mentioned earlier on, because fibers you can take a lot of fruits, vegetables. You can take enough.
Celery stick.
Exactly. And then right now, but we are focusing more on what I call the gut environment activator. This kind of differentiate from ourselves with different kind of. We are beyond prebiotics. We are beyond fibers. We are beyond probiotics. We are focusing more on developing ingredients that support perfect or good gut environment for the keystone bacteria, which is the beneficial bacteria to thrive in our gut.
Amazing. So there would be a lot of people who might be pitching their stuff and saying a lot of things, but Trilliome has third-party recognition as well. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, so because of our experience in the industry, because we were coming from the pharmaceutical industry as well as the nutrition industry, so we do know people, the decision maker or the high level people in that industry, well, to support us in this area. So we have letter of interest or support for about 7 to 8 companies at the moment worldwide. So we are not only focusing on the Europe or US market, but we also focus on in the APAC region.
Amazing. And you have validation also for your product that it's a good product.
Yeah, exactly. We have that as well.
Amazing. So you guys also use AI to identify. I think most of the podcasts, they don't go without AI. So you also use AI to identify promising fruit-based molecules. So does it suggest that future diets will be optimized or designed by algorithms?
I would say yes and no. And from our side, our AI platform, we are still very much at the early stage because we are still very an early startup company. We just started 1 year ago, more than 1 year ago.
Yeah.
We are building that AI platform, and we are more looking into more the discovery platform. So what does it mean here is we wanted to look into all this bacteria sequencing, microbe sequencing, for example, and look into novel compound based on that. What kind of compounds affecting this bacteria or this virus or this fungus, for example. And we can build an AI machine learning platform based on this information itself. And that's the tool that we are using to identify new compound based on this platform. And that's one part of discovery platform. And of course, if you talk about the personalized nutrition AI stuff, there's a different ball game. All right. And that one focusing more on using AI to tell you what you can eat, what you eat, for example. That could be in the future as well.
Exactly. So your level of knowledge or discovery in the AI is deeper level.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not the same as everyone is using.
It's different from the personalized nutrition because personalized nutrition direction is more of a consumer direction.
Exactly.
Our AI platform is more on discovery platform, which means how can we discover a new compound that is beneficial to the gut microbiome.
Amazing. Sky is the limit.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is the single biggest misconception about the gut health that you would like to correct? And what should be the practical step people can take every day to make it better, to support their Trilliome?
I think, of course, the first thing is I always have to tell myself as well not to oversell the microbiome. Microbiome is important, but there's also other factors contributing to the microbiome, to the human health as well. So we always try not to oversell because, as I said, some of the industry or some of the section out there, they try to oversell microbiome is everything.
Yeah.
But it's not entirely true. Of course, there's a multifactorial thing for our health as well.
Exactly.
And in terms of the how to take care of our microbiome, I'm a big fan of fermented food.
Yeah,
so
of course.
I come from Asia, so I take a lot of all this like kimchi, for example.
Amazing.
Miso is good as well, and all this. I mean, if in Germany, probably sauerkraut is not bad. You know, it's quite good. Kombucha, kefir, and all this fermented food. Normally, they are quite good to the gut. Depending on people, some people can't take it as well because it's just too much of the fermented food.
Amazing. So now I'm coming from the women health space. Okay. I will not let you go without asking them.
No worries.
So women goes through these hormonal phases, puberty, pregnancy, perimenopause, menopause. And how does these microbiome interact with the female hormones across these life stages?
That's a good point. What I mentioned, because we are focusing a lot on the gut-brain axis earlier on, because that's what also we are focusing. Of course, there's also this gut-vagina axis. That's also important.
Oh, wow. The first time to hear that.
It's a similar concept as well. So the metabolites is also transferring here and there. They also provide some probiotics sometimes, but there's also more of oral probiotics. And I think there's also some of the probiotics for the vagina too, which you can also apply topical. But I'm not entirely expert in that area as well. But there are some.
We have probiotics preps actually.
Okay.
Yeah, in the clinics, and we do prescribe them. So I'm not into depth, but anytime bacterial vaginosis,
Of
we
course,
have
if
to,
you have
because-
the infection going on,
exactly. Like there's one infection, one is altered
yeah,
pH because of the altered microbiota. That is
Correct.
vaginosis. There we give the probiotics
yeah,
also.
you have the topical probiotics.
And I
so,
feel, topical, like suppository. Also, like endometriosis. Still, it's enigmatic disease. Who knows, the answer come out later from the probiotics. So many women, they report symptoms like bloating, weight gain, mood changes, brain fog during hormonal transitions. So there's any evidence that targeting these microbiome can help their symptoms.
there are definitely
Yeah.
studies out there, especially also on some probiotics that targeting the woman's health direction.
Amazing.
And as I said, it's also talking about the gut-vagina axis. And instead of the topical probiotics, you can also take like oral probiotics. Again, really have to depends which probiotics you are taking, right? I mean, some of the probiotic doesn't work very well. You just have to see whether how good is a probiotic is to take that also to improve the woman's health direction. Yeah.
Amazing. You know, the sad thing in the past was that most of the research were man-centric. So even when they say that this suture should dissolve in your body in 3 weeks, and patient is coming after 6 weeks, and I'm pulling that thread because it never dissolved
True.
like it was supposed to.
I think, yeah, exactly. I think there should be more clinical trials involving
women.
both,
Exactly.
both women
Exactly.
and men as well. And also, I would say the ethnic group is also very important. I think right now, most of the clinical trials are focusing more on the Western population.
Also,
And because,
Western and man-centric.
correct. And then in the end, ultimately, I think the world is huge, right? I think there's so many people, different ethnic group as well. And there's just not much clinical trial also in other part of the world.
It should be.
And because microbiome is so crucial, because every of the ethnic group, every country have a different microbiome because
of their dietary habits.
dietary, genetics, lifestyle, environment. So that's play
So
a role.
many factors.
There's so many factors. So we have to
Amazing.
take into consideration of the microbiome for clinical trials.
Amazing. So scientists like you also will bring all these stuff, and the gap between these experiments not being in all races, maybe in the future the gap will be filled.
I think there's also a term for it for clinical trials called the inclusivity
Yes,
of clinical trials. Yeah.
Exactly. So from preventive health perspective, supporting the microbiome will affect long-term risks, which affect disproportionately women, such as metabolic diseases, autoimmune diseases, and bone health.
Yeah, definitely. I think that will be, in the end, ultimately, we need to take care of the gut microbiome because it's affecting all the other organs as well. Obviously, gut brain, we talk about gut brain, gut
And
vagina.
it affects much
Much
women than the men.
True, that's also true in that sense. I
Yeah.
think we have to look into that direction to how to use the microbiome to improve the woman's health a bit more in this area.
Dr. Tim, thank you. On a very short notice, you accepted my invite. So if you want to give one message, the camera is yours.
I would say just take care of your microbiome by eating healthily and live happily ever after that.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.